That was interesting. Last week talking to that chap Dennis, he was very interesting, wasn't he?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
He sent me an email afterwards saying that he really enjoyed talking to you and sort of connecting with a long lost cousin, because my inquiry to him just came out of the blue, and he was absolutely delighted to track you down, and he did know Lila, but he didn't have any, like you, he didn't have any connection with her after kind of 1960 or something. She just disappeared out of his life.
Yeah.
And I think this 21st was about the last time that he saw her alive.
Yeah.
And then then nothing.
I wonder whatever happened to her.
Don't know. I've got no idea. I don't think anybody will know. No. Really. As I said to you last week, it's a shame that we didn't start this process way earlier, while she was alive, although she probably had dementia when she died, I suspect, because there's something mentioned on her death certificate along those lines, so she might not have been that helpful at the end, but it would have been good to know. One of those questions that never gets answered.
Yes, it's awful when you think about it. Never knew your mother, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's probably only in the last 10 years that you probably come to appreciate, the circumstances about your mother's leaving and stuff like that, and you bring yourself, because I think you harboured very bad feelings towards her, didn't you, over most of your life.
Yeah.
And so, if you didn't have those bad feelings, you might have been able to contact her years earlier, but, you just didn't feel inclined because of a sense of abandonment and, those kinds of things. So, yeah. It's interesting. I suspect if you had have contacted her, she probably would have, you would have been able to rekindle a relationship with her.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't seem, based on the photos, to be somebody who was, reclusive or, and she certainly stayed in touch with her brother and sisters.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, her sisters were really good to me.
And I suspect that they would have reported back to her as well that you were being looked after. And,
yeah.
I would suspect that, and I would have thought, maybe some of those gifts which were given, they might not have been from the sisters. They might have been from your mother.
Yeah,
so,
could have been.
Yeah. Because, I imagine she probably carried the same. She probably carried with the feelings that you had of disappointment with your mother. She probably had guilt. She probably carried those all her life as well.
Yeah.
Because she never had any other children, and you were her only son. So.
Very sad when you think about it.
It is. Yeah, it is. Very sad. So what else? What are probably the most vivid memories of the war years that you had? The things that stood out the most through the period?
Being up at bloody Whenuapai, I suppose.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That was probably because of the sense of what was to come, the fact that you might have to fight and those kinds of things, or just the mates that you made and you were having a good time because you were still in Auckland.
Well, they knew. Do you remember when the time the bloody, or you wouldn't remember, Flying Fortress blew up in bloody Whenuapai?
No. Tell me about that.
All these bloody Yanks were on the crew of this Flying Fortress, and they'd all been in the bloody canteen, drunk as lords when they took off, and one motor was on bloody fire just as they took off, and They never got very far. They got up to the main road from Brigham's Creek. Now where Brigham's Creek is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there was a house right alongside, and they bloody crashed there. And the bloody house had a bloody lean on like this. And
Did they get killed? Were they killed?
yeah.
Right.
And
And you were based at Whenuapai at the time, were you?
yeah.
Right.
So we went up. Our sergeant said, "Oh, we better go up there and see if we can do anything, you know." So we hopped in the truck and went up there. And I wish to Christ we hadn't have gone. Bits of bloody bodies everywhere.
Did you see that, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, shit. Oh, one of the guys picked up, you know, they used to wear those leather jackets with
the
fur
collar, yeah.
He picked up one. He said, "Oh," he said, "I'll have this." And there was all blood and guts inside it as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Did he still take it?
No, he soon threw that away.
Yes. Terrible. Yuck.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Did you know Merle at the time?
No.
Right. Okay. We're going to talk about her another time. So I just wondered if you met her after the war. Yeah. Okay. We'll talk about that another time.
Okay.
Yeah. And so when the Japanese, when you heard the atomic bomb got dropped on Japan, when did you hear about that? Did you know what an atomic bomb was? You didn't. Right.
What clue?
So when did you know that, or when did you find out that the atomic bomb had been dropped? Was it like years afterwards, or?
Oh, no, when we came home.
Right.
Yeah.
And they had to explain what an atomic bomb was?
Oh, there was a lot about it in the paper.
Was there?
Yeah.
Right.
And the other one, what was the other place they dropped one?
Nagasaki.
Nagasaki, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
One was called the little boy, and the other was called the fat boy.
Fat boy, that's right. Yeah. Terrible. And there would have been general acceptance if that was a good thing to do back then.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody had any sympathy for the Japanese.
Yeah.
Because of the things that they'd done.
No sympathy. You couldn't have any bloody sympathy for them.
No. No. Do you have any sympathy for them now? These years later?
Probably they never had to drop them because they'd been firebombing bloody Tokyo.
Mm.
And it just the place just burned to the bloody ground.
That's right, yeah. Japan was close to surrender anyway.
Yeah.
Mm. Although when they dropped the first bomb, they still didn't surrender.
Oh no, that's right.
And they had to drop the second one.
Yeah.
To bring them to their knees. So, yeah.
They only had themselves to blame.
They did. No, they did. That's right. So how do you feel about Japanese people today? Have you forgiven the atrocities of the war, or?
Oh, well, they never really affected me very much.
They didn't, but all your comrades at war, and I remember years ago you saying to me that you didn't like the Japanese, but this was like when I first met you.
Yeah.
Years ago, you didn't have very good thoughts about them.
Yeah.
But what about today? If you're
just take them or leave them.
Yeah. But you don't hate them like
No.
you might have at the end of the war or during the war.
Couldn't say I hated them.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about the Germans? How do you feel about the Germans?
Never had anything to do with them.
No. But you heard the stories as well.
Oh yeah, they were worse than the bloody Japanese.
In some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least the Japanese killed people for honour and for, for war things, not for genocide and for just getting rid of them because they were, of a certain race or whatever. So that was largely unforgivable.
Because that Hitler, he was a raving bloody lunatic.
He was. Yeah. So when you signed up for, when you signed up to join the Air Force and ended up being in the Army, did you ever think that you might have to go to Europe rather than to the Pacific?
Never had enough brains to be in the bloody air crew.
Yeah, but you could have easily been posted to Europe, because a lot of guys were posted to Europe. To Egypt.
Yeah.
In the Middle East and places, they were posted all through there. But you got posted to the islands, so you could have been a lot closer to the war than you ended up being. Did you leave the Army as a private?
Oh, it's an LAC.
What's an LAC?
Leading aircraftsman.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Again, it's another
Has a propeller
yeah.
on your sleeve.
So that's another Air Force nod. That's another Air Force nod.
Yeah.
Even though you were still in the Army, why do they give you all this terminology that belongs to the Air Force? They're like calling you a squadron, and there must have been some kind of connection with the Air Force.
Yeah, well, we were in what they call a work squadron.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But assisting the Army. But you were assisting the Army.
No.
You weren't. You were assisting the Air Force.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you actually probably did join the Air Force as such, but not necessarily in a fighting capacity, but in a support capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
See, I joined the Air Force, and because the Japs were so bloody close to invading New Zealand, they just all got put in the Army.
Mm.
And me and the bloody Beaufort sons.
Mm. So what stories did you hear about the Japs and how close they were? There's a well-known story about Japanese Japanese submarines coming into the harbour. I've heard those stories before.
Yeah, I think that was true enough.
Mm.
They'd fly a bloody plane off, and they went to Wellington and they came up to Auckland.
So they possibly would have been scouting, scoping out for potential invasion. Yeah.
I think there was always some American ships at the Devonport Naval Base.
Mm. Well, the Japs landed in Australia, didn't they? They landed up in Cairns, or somewhere around, not Cairns, Darwin. They were fighting around Darwin, the Japanese.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if they'd have made any kind of headway there, they would have potentially come across to New Zealand.
Yeah.
I suspect. They never made it to Fiji.
No.
No. But I don't know why. Because that would have been a natural stepping off point to, for Australia and for New Zealand. So, but yeah. All right. Well, anything else to add about the war years before we call it quits?
Really.
No. No more stories.
No. I remember a bloody. After I came back, there was a plane went through the bloody roof of the concrete hangar at Whenuapai. Don't know what happened to the Jockeys. They were coming back to get married, I think, and they just bloody went straight through the bloody concrete bloody hangar, those big curved ones.
Mm.
So it must have hit with a hell of a bloody force.
Sure, also.
Yeah.
Gosh. You'd gone by that stage. You'd left.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's been a few accidents in at Whenuapai, hasn't there, over the years?
Oh, yeah.
Mm. Yeah. All right, well, we might call it quits there.